Okay. Okay. So, Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. So, my name is Dr. Rosmina. So, I will be to 14 project closure. So, we are now in semester in week 11. And this will be the topic number 8, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So here we have the lesson plan. So I recall the lesson plan as described in your first week of your class, Dr. Nur Aini. She mentioned that from the 14 weeks, the topics have been distributed among the lecturers, and this is at the moment we are in week 11, project implementation, monitoring and closure. And I'm from JK, so students from JKs are familiar with me. Perhaps students from other department maybe haven't seen me, they don't even know me at all. All right, so for this course, I will be responsible to share my understanding, my knowledge, very little knowledge on this topic, which is part of your project management. And if you notice here, I have highlighted important dates, and I suppose the quiz has been done, and I was informed test 1 is postponed. By right, it should be end of May, but because lecturer gave ways to invited speakers, so now having a difficult time to reschedule the test 1. However, the date 28 June, which is next Tuesday, is a confirmed date, and the exam is going to be face-to-face, will be held in DTAMS, Dewan Tun Abdullah Muhammad Saleh. So that room should fit all of you guys, because in the course, we have 410 students registered for the course. So we cannot change the date, and once we change the date for the test 1 previously, to get another date is very difficult. So please make sure you come for the test 1, and this test 1 is 20% of your course grade. And I would like to remind that we have PMP, and the PMP is in progress, whereby the due dates, I suppose the interim reports in the process. By right, it should be done, progress report 1, progress report 2. And the due date for your video presentation and final PMP is stated almost approximately a week from today lah. So I hope you guys been working on the project work, and I know students are very good at the video making. Okay, and please take note that test 2 change to final exam, and the date for your final exam will be face-to-face on 25th of July, afternoon session, 2:30 to 4:30. The exam is for 2 hours only, and venue is in Dektal. So test 2 is actually combination of, it's like almost like a midterm and final exam lah. So combination of my parts and also another lecturer's part. Okay, so this is about the progression of the course. So please remind your friends. I only see about 150 students from 410. So that is only 1/3. Not even 1/3. Or almost 1/3 lah, 1/3 of the total students. Maybe they are busy with other things, but it's okay. I will post the video, recorded video in UKM Folio later on. So please, I hope no one stop the recording until the end of the class session. Okay, so let's move on to the topics that we have to cover today. Maybe I stop the video so that I have better bandwidth. Where is my video? Okay, I switch off camera. And okay, for project management, recall that there are actually basically 5 main sections or 5 main phases of the project management. In these 5 phases are the initiation of the project planning, project execution, and the last 2 parts, project monitoring and control, and last but very important part of the project is the closure of the project itself. Okay, so the first 3 parts you have learned with other lecturers previously. So I will focus more on monitoring the progression of the project, monitoring and control, and also issues on how to close the project. Okay, so this will be the cycle of the project where you have the initiation phase, planning phase, execution phase, monitoring and performance phase, and the last part is closure phase. Okay, and okay, in terms of the book reference, I upload chapter 13 and 14, the PDF of those chapters as a reference for students to refer to in UKM Folio. So based on the textbook reference, the blue diagram, the blue boxes are actually where we are now. Okay, and okay, the structure of a project monitoring information system is to create a project monitoring system that involves determining what data to collect, how you want to collect the data, when, and who will collect the data. The data that is meant here is information regarding the project itself, the status of the project, the stages, who's doing the project, who are responsible, and so on. So those are the data regarding the project implementation. And then once you get the data, you need to analyze, and you need to know how to analyze the data. And then you need to prepare a report of the current status of the project. So in other words, you want to produce a report of the current project progression. Okay, and for next, information system structure. In terms of what data you should collect, you need to have information regarding the current status of the project, the schedule, the cost, remaining cost to complete the project, date that the project will be completed, potential problems to be addressed that time, and then whether the project is out of control, activities out of control requiring intervention, and then you do cost and or schedule overruns and the reasons for the overrun if it happens. Okay, and then you need to do a forecasting of the overruns at time of the project completion. So these are the important data that you need to collect from the progression. So monitoring means you want to make sure project should be completed as scheduled. So in order to know whether the project can be completed on time, you need to collect the current status of the project. Okay. the costing also, how much budget has been utilized. So from that, you can know whether you have overspent or underspent, and then the timing, if it's delay or ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule is okay, but too much delay of project is not good. People will be happy with progression of the project that is ahead of time, but when the project is behind time, many, especially the client, will not be happy. So those are important data that you have to collect in order for you to make the report. Okay. Collecting the data and analyzing it, you also need to identify who will collect the project data and how to collect the project data. When, meaning that schedule, you have to have a scheduling time to monitor the project itself. Okay, and also not just who to collect the data, you need to also identify the personnel who are responsible to compile those data and also to make a report. It may be a different person collecting the data and another person compiling the data. For a big company, a big project, when the project team is comprising of many people, so you need to have delegation of the task and to make sure who's who, and everybody do their part and reporting on time. So in order to ensure the project is working as scheduled and meet the target. And then in terms of reports and reporting, who will receive the reports? Okay, people who prepare the report, and you need to identify to whom the report should be submitted. Normally, the client, or before you given to the clients, the report has to be checked by certain, maybe the project leader. And so in order to identify that, before making the reports, you have to identify the target person to whom you have to submit the report. And then how will the reports be transmitted or submitted through? Okay, and then when the reports has to be distributed, and also when the report has to be submitted. Okay, the progress report format. Progress should be having interim report, whereby interim means based on the scheduled time and current status of project, issues on the schedules, the costing, and the scope of the project. And then you need to identify the cumulative trends of the project and the problems and issues since the previous report. So that means, say for example, the previous report was prepared in April. Now it's September. It's June. So you have scheduled every 2 months. There should be a report. So you have to report after progression from April to June. So do not cover the work that is before April. So you only report for that interim time. Okay, you have to identify problems and issues since the last report, such as the actions and resolutions of earlier problems, and then new variants and problems identified within that interim of the report. Then you need to also include corrective action plan. This corrective action plan is for the new variants and problems identified. Okay. Now move on to the project control process. For project control process, we have control means the process of comparing actual performance against plan to identify deviations, evaluate courses of action and take appropriate corrective action. Okay, project control steps involve setting a baseline plan. In order for you to control the project progression, you need to set a baseline plan and then to measure the progress and the performance of the project, then compare the plan against the actual conduct of the project or actual implementation of the project. So without the baseline, you cannot compare, you cannot estimate the progression of the project. So that's why it's important to set the baseline plan first. Then from this, you can take action, necessary actions. If the progression is not good, too slow, or spend too much fund on it, or too little, so you have to do necessary actions in order to correct, to minimize the deviations from the original plan, of deviation from the baseline plan. The tools used for this project control is to track tracking and baseline Gantt charts. Okay, and also use control charts. Okay, so the baseline and tracking Gantt charts based on task. Okay, in the beginning, you have identified different tasks. For example, you have identified the y-axis is always the task. So you have task A, task B, task C until F. In each task, you estimate the time. So the x-axis is always the timing. So maybe this project is 14 months. So task A to be completed in 2 months, task B in 3 months, task C in 4 months, and so on. So you need some task. For example, task B can be continued or can be initiated right after task A completed. But task B and C will be initiated in parallel. And you will, this is the baseline, for example. And the second figure in the bottom, the shaded blue here. For example, you identify task A is completed within the time as estimated or as planned. Task B actual, task C is finished ahead of time. So then you can estimate, and the dotted line is today's date. So from that, you can estimate or forecast future trend of the project progression. So in order for you to evaluate or to control or compare, you need to have to look at the baseline Gantt chart first. So this is considered as the tool. The Gantt chart is one of the tool for you to evaluate and also to ensure project control is done. Project control is properly monitored. Okay, and the shaded here is considered estimated. For example, this task E finished too early, so you have ample of time so that you can delay. And this one is actually because of task D is delayed. Because the last task F can only be done right after task D is completed based on this Gantt chart lah. So from that you can know, although some task is completed early, but because the task that should be finished early did not finish early, it will make later on the final task F here estimated late completion. So once you forecast this, you can avoid it. Okay, that is how you can control the project. All right. Then another method, another tool for project control is to use the schedule control chart. The previous slide was using Gantt chart. The second tool is to use the schedule control chart. So the schedule control chart is important, whereby you have a schedule. Here, time periods, your y-axis is time period. For example, from 0 to 20. And you always have a timeline of today's timeline. And time period, you plot how much time is taken to complete the individual task. So here, for example, one task, you have 6 tasks here, A, B, C, D, E, F by right. And you identify the time period completion. And from that, you will have, you know, if ahead of schedule, you put it a positive number, time period is positive. Behind schedules, you plot in the negative time frame. So that will gives you estimation of an overall whether it will be completed on time or ahead of time, or opposite way which is behind the time. And another thing is important is the development of an earned values or cost or schedule system. Here you have time phase baseline plan. This time phase baseline plan corrects the failure of most monitoring systems to connect a project's actual performance to its schedule and forecast budget. Here, it is actually the systems that measure only cost variance that do not identify resources and project cost problems associated with falling behind or progressing ahead of schedule. Okay, then you have earned value cost or the schedule system, which is an integrated project management system based on the earned value concept that uses a time phased budget baseline to compare actual and planned schedule and cost. Okay, in terms of glossary of terms, when you do chart, you normally use abbreviation, and these are the common abbreviations used in the chart. You have EV stand for earned value, PV planned value, SC is actual cost, CV cost variance, SV is schedule variance, and there are associated values. For example, actual cost is the actual cost. Cost variance is the difference between earned value and the actual cost. Whereas schedule variance is the difference between earned value and the planned value. So these are all numerical values. And then BAC, budget cost at completion. Whereas this BAC is actually total budgeted cost of the baseline or project cost account. And EAC is estimated cost at completion. ETC, estimated cost to complete the remaining work. And VAC is cost variance at completion. Okay, the VAC will indicate the expected actual over or underrun cost at the completion time. So I put a star here on this slide because you have to understand or to be familiar for the glossary terms here. Okay, so this star indicates this slide is important. Okay, and then developing an integrated cost schedule system. You will have you need to define the work using WBS, where WBS you need to have scope, work packages, deliverables, organization units, resources, and budgets in the WBS. Okay, and then you need to develop work and resource schedules. where in the work and resource schedule, you need to produce schedule resources to activities and also time phase work packages into the network. Then you need to identify to develop a time phase budget using work packages included in an activity, accumulate budgets, this which is PV, plan value, and at the work package level, collect the actual cost for the work performance, which is actual cost AC. Then multiply percent complete times the original budget, earned value. EV is earned value. Then compute the schedule variance, which is the difference between EV and PV, and the cost variance, which is EV minus actual cost, earned value minus the actual cost. So you have to write the formula lah, be familiarized with the values of the glossary. Okay, project management information system overview. If, for example, you have organization OBS and you have also scope deliverables WBS, so you have organization of the OBS and you compare with the scope deliverables, and then you will have the work packages. So you will identify the time, resource, level, material, support effort, and so on. Then you plan schedule baseline. Then the control is you can control the time, cost, and specifications by deliverables and organization. Okay, and then developing the project baselines. The rules for placing costs in baselines there are two main rules. You have costs are placed exactly as they are expected to be earned in order to track them to their point of origin. And then you have percent complete rule, which is costs that are periodically assigned to a baseline as units of work which are completed over the duration of a work package. Okay, so that is the percent complete rule. And then you will have purposes of a baseline or plan value, which is an anchor point for measuring the performance. So a planned cost and expected schedule against which actual costs and schedules are measured. It is a basis for cash flows and awarding progress payments. Also, the summation of time phase budgets, which is actually cost accounts as some work package along the project timeline. So what are the costs that must be included in the baselines? You have to make sure the baseline plan must have the labor cost, equipment cost, material cost, project direct overhead cost, or which is the direct overhead called DOC. So all these must be included in the baseline plan. Okay. And then compare the earned value where when you want to do analysis of the variance, the method for variance analysis, you need to compare with the earned value, with the expected schedule value, and also with the actual cost. Then you assess status of a project, which require data elements, data budgeted cost of the work schedule, which is the planned value, and then budgeted cost of the work completed or the earned value. And lastly, on the required elements, you need to identify the actual cost of the work completed. Then the calculation or the you need to calculate schedule and the cost variance. A positive variance will indicate desirable condition, while a negative variance suggests problems or suggests that changes have taken place So most of the time, the indicator for the good variance means a positive value. So if you have positive variance, it should be desirable condition, whereas negative values is unfavorable, meaning that some deviation has taken place. So in most of the time, you want a positive variance. Okay, and then cost variance is equals to earned value minus the actual cost, which indicates if the work accomplished using labor and materials cost more or less than what was planned at any time, any point in the project development. And the schedule variance is the difference between earned value and the planned value. Okay, and this schedule variance is actually presenting an overall assessment in dollar terms of the progress of all work packages in the project schedule to date. So this I also highlight as important for you. So given actual values, you need to be able to estimate the amount of variances, whether it's a cost variance or the schedule variance. Okay. So now let's look at cost schedule graphs. Okay, this graph shows as labels as cost. So your y-axis is costing. And then you will have timing as the x-axis. And you need to put the timeline. And here you will have, the higher it goes is the bigger the number. And you will have, like for example, this curve, blue curve is the actual cost at current time. Today is the current time. And EAC, earn actual cost, and BAC. So you will see here, and this one earn value is below that, and planned value also below the actual cost. So from here you will have schedule variance and cost variance. So here you have smaller schedule variance compared to cost variance. Okay. So if you know the exact value, you can know the amount. Like for example, you have schedule variance here is 75, 300 minus 200 lah. And okay, the y-axis here labels actual dollar or actual monetary values, and the other side is in terms of percentage. This project BAC is the cost, actual cost 400, but it can go up to 500. If more than 400, then the baseline actual cost BAC. 500 means you spend 125%, which is not good. It's over budget lah. And so you compare with the baseline value here. So that's why the percentage goes more than 100%. So you try to make sure the cost by right should not exceed the 100%. This can happen actually. Many projects exceed the actual baseline, which makes the project become losing lah actually. Okay, and then now we look at earned value review exercise. There are many conditions of situations or cost value and schedule value. Okay, CV is cost value. Here we have, if you look at the curve here, plan value is in the middle. You have actual value higher, but earned value smaller. So here, schedule variance, not value. SV is a negative value. Okay, but cost CV is, in this case, both are negative lah, because CV is EV minus AC. So here, EV is negative, smaller than AC. So that's why you have a negative value here. But SV is the difference between EV and PV. So EV is smaller than PV, so you also produce a negative value. So if you have planned value in the middle, AC is higher than EV, you will have both schedule variance and cost variance are both negative. For this one, when you have planned values lower curve and earned value is higher than actual cost, you will have schedule variance and cost variance, both are positive. Okay, whereas in this diagram, you have schedule variance positive, but cost variance is negative. So this one, PV is smaller than AC and EV, whereas here PV is highest compared to the two curve, two EV and AC. So here you have SV equals to a negative value and CV equals to positive value. So from this, most of the time you want both are positive. Okay, so from this figure, the desirable one is SV and CV positive lah. Okay, then developing a status report. I present a hypothetical example. Okay, assumptions that each cost account has only one work package, and each cost account will be represented as an activity on the network. And the project network early start times will serve as the basis for assigning the baseline values. From the moment work and activity begins, some actual costs will be incurred each period until the activity is completed. So this is the main assumptions. Okay, then a work breakdown structure, WBS. Example from text reference, you have a digital camera prototype project, the project name, and you have OBS in the y-axis, and you have the costing, the breakdown. Okay, and you identify this, or you label a costing for each of the design. For example, design 20 for camera prototype. Here you have design 20, shell 15, storage 100, and zoom it's 35, and assembly is about 150. And then you have design, shell, storage is memory, and then zoom is zoom system, and assembly, and the last one is test. So you have one last different in the top here, test. The rest are similar. And so then you plot the values that it intercepts. Okay, and you can see the amount is the same. And the only extra cost is the test lah, because it's not here. So the last one will incur additional cost of 30 for the testing part. Okay, so then you need to compare for your control. To do the project control, this is the baseline chart, Gantt chart. From the 6 tasks: design, share, storage, zoom, assemble, and last is the test. So you allocate timing for it, and baseline durations, and slack. Okay, so you have slack is the extension. Okay, and then from that you can include schedule information and the baseline budget needs, and then you do evaluation of each task and the amount lah. Okay, you will have total PV by period and so on. This is a theoretical example only in order for you to understand the concepts of identify all those parameters of CV, SV, and so on. Okay, and then cost variance and schedule variance. Always CV is EV minus AC. Schedule variance is always EV minus plan value. And you need to prepare status report ending period 1, and you evaluate status report ending period 2, and so on. Status report ending period 3, then you compare, and then you compile. Okay, this one period from interim 1, interim 2, and interim 3. So progressing report. So here the cost variance and schedule variance, you will have positive or negative values. Okay, then you have status report 4 ending period 4, status report ending period 5, and so on. And you will have cumulative totals. And period 6, 7, and so on. Okay. Example here, you have PV in the middle. And here you will have both cost variance and schedule variance are negative values, because you have AC actual cost higher than the cost EV, and your plan value is in the middle. Okay. And then you compare the baseline Gantt chart, the slide actual completed, and the remaining duration to be completed, because your current time is the dotted line. Right. Project roll up and period 7, for example, this taken from end period of 7. You prepare the total. Actually, each task you identify schedule variance and cost variance. So here you will see schedule variance is 0. This cost variance is negative. This one is 0, negative, 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 0, negative. This one schedule variance is negative. Now it's 0. And the last one is both are 0 values. So that means for this project, it finished at par based on the plan or the baseline Gantt chart or there's no difference between the plan or baseline with the actual cost. There is no schedule variance and cost variance, which is good lah. Okay, and then indexes to monitor progress. What are the values that you hold on to? So you use index. This index actually will describe the progression of the project. So these index are a performance index. This performance index can be the cost performance index or scheduling performance index, SPI, and percent complete indexes. So you will have values like CPI is actually the ratio of EV over AC. SPI is the ratio of EV over PV. And SPI is actually a measure of the scheduling efficiency, whereas CPI, the cost performance index, is actually a measure of the efficiency of the work accomplished to date. Okay, then you have percent completeness or index of percent completeness that will indicate how much of the work accomplished represents the total budgeted. Okay, and actual cost or in terms of monetary to up to date. And you will have PCIB is actually the ratio of EV over BAC, and PCIC is the ratio of AC to EAC. So these are actually indexes that indicates progression of the project. Okay, similar to cost variance and schedule variance, the index represents overall. If the index is equals to, because index is measured as a ratio, whereas variance is a measure of difference. So when ratio, the most you will get is either the number is more than 1, when the numerator over denominator equals to 1, or smaller than 1. So if the index is greater than 1, meaning that the numerator is bigger than the denominator, when you do mathematics, 10 per 5, for example. 10 divided by 5, you get 2. So 2 is more than 1. If you have same amount, the numerator and the denominator is the same, so you will get 1. But if your numerator is bigger than the denominator, for example, you get 2 over 5, so it will be 0.4, kan? So which is smaller than 1. So a positive or bigger ratio will indicate under cost. A smaller ratio will indicate over cost. If the ratio is exactly 1, that means it is on cost, meaning that actual value is as planned, on schedule. In terms of cost performance index and schedule performance index, under cost, greater than 1 means under cost, but in terms of schedule, it is ahead of schedule. But when smaller than 1, the index is smaller than 1, it is over cost and it is behind schedule. So these are always complementing each other. If the project is over cost, it is behind schedule. If the project is under cost, the project is ahead of schedule. So if at par with the plan, it means the cost performance index is on cost and the schedule performance index, SPI, is on schedule. Okay, so now here in terms of index, you have index from 0 to 1 point above 1, and at level 1 here is the on cost. Here you will see at different time, the total can be smaller than 1 and can be greater than 1. So here you have schedule performance index is 0.8, cost performance index is 0.7, and PCIB is equal to 0.05. Okay, so this one is index periods 1 to 7, an example. Okay, then we see additional earn values, earn value rules, where rules that apply to short duration activities and or small cost activities. Okay, so you have 100% rule, which always assumes 100% of a budget credit is earned at once and only when the work is completed. Whereas 50-50 rule allows for 50% of the value of the work package budget to be earned when it is started and 50% to be earned when the package is completed. Percent complete with weighted monitoring gates uses subjective estimated percent complete in combination with hard tangible monitoring points. Okay, then forecasting final project cost is a method that used to revise estimates of future project cost, where you have EAC RE and EACF. These are all indexed. So EACRE allows experts in the field to change original baseline durations and costs because new information tells them the original estimates are not accurate. Okay, then EACF uses actual cost to date as an efficiency index to project final cost. So EACF means final cost. Okay. Forecasting your model, EACF, you will have the equation for this forecasting model is always EACF equals to ETC plus AC. And EAC is equals to work remaining divided by cost performance index. Whereby CPI is actually the ratio EV to AC. And work remaining is breakdown actual cost minus earned value. And EACF is estimated total cost at completion. ETC is the estimated cost to complete the remaining work. AC is cumulative actual cost of work completed to date. And CPI cumulative cost index to date, where breakdown actual cost is total budget of the baseline. And EV is the cumulative budget cost of work completed to date. And you identify for at the status of a certain duration, you identify all the values of PV, EV, AC, SV, and so on. And these numbers are important in order for you to monitor the progression of the project, whether it will be later and looking at the index, performance index, CPI, SPI, and so on, you will know whether the project is at par, behind, or ahead of time, and so on. Okay, I do not want to explain too much on this, and I will proceed to the next one. And these are another example. This example describes another project, Trojan Nuclear Plant Decommissioning Earned Value Status Report. So this just shows detail of PV, EV, AC, PV, EV, and so on as an example for the this Trojan nuclear plant. And then if we want to look at other control issues, which are the issues in maintaining the control of projects, you look at scope creep, baseline changes, data acquisition cost and problems. And looking at the scope changes, I can identify what to do. Like for example, you have original baseline, and then when you see from today's line, then you can change it. After this, you are not happy, you reduce the original baseline so that you will get a new baseline cost to decrease. So with this, you will have original baselines as if it decreases. And from that, you will have a new baseline, a cost increase. Because here you can decrease or you can increase it. If you want to increase, now it becomes higher than the baseline. If you want to decrease, you make it lower than the original baseline. But the dotted line here is as if nothing has been changed. But the new baseline and A and B are suggestions that you can adjust. Okay, this is another example, conference center Wi-Fi project. From this project, you need to identify many data, such as the milestones report, the time cost report, risk report, and so on. And then the data taken, information regarding the time data taken, when, is it bi-monthly, is it weekly, and so on. And then the mode of data taking is via email. Who responsible to take the data? Project office, and so on. The recipient will be senior manager for that project. So once you have this table, the task can be delegated nicely, and team in the project will perform their work as it is. So the progression or the implementation of the project becomes wise and targeted to be completed within time. If you do not have the proper plan, you can have a tendency the project is not completed as scheduled, and the quality of the project later on will not be good. So that's why you need to evaluate the project. So although there are many new terms and terminologies involved in project management, these many terminologies are actually common for project management. Even if you do taking a project management course later on, for maybe after you completed your first degree, when you learn about project management in master level, for example, it's the same. The only difference is maybe the in-depth focus of each part of the project management may be different. So in this semester, during your third year, you are exposed to about project management, because later on in your final year, you will be doing your final year project. However, in engineering project, final year project, we do not evaluate the project management. We do evaluate based on the supervisor's evaluations only. But in actual project, there are lots of things you have to consider. Do analysis, inside the monitoring of the project, monitoring, control, and then the last part will be project closure. Okay, now we move on to project closure. So for project monitoring and control, we finished. The other, I think I have 20 slides for 23, 23.6 for project closure. Can I proceed? I will finish at 7. Boleh ya? Okay, the project closure, we look at the type of closure, whether the project closes. There are 5 categories of manners where project can be closed. Normal closure means project progression in line with the planned schedule. And the project can be also closed ahead of time, not completed. And this is called premature. We can also have perpetual. Perpetual means it is closed, not because of not enough budget or whatever. Some issues that requires the project to be closed, maybe policy involved with policy. Sometimes it may be because of budget also that cannot be completed, so they stop the project or they hold the project, then later on they continue the project. That is called perpetual project. The closure of the project is perpetual type. It is not permanently closed. Like premature means you close the project, no more continuation of the project. Whereas a project that is shortly or closed for a short duration, however continue after some time, that is called perpetual closure. It's closed temporary only, but then after some time, after, for example, economy, due to economy situations, the country situation, and then after the issues resolved, they continue that project. That is perpetual closure. Failed project, similar to premature, the project is halted, no continuation after that. And then you can also have project closure based because of change priority, meaning that no need to continue the project because there is no priority to make the project completed. So they change the priority, so they stop. So I hope you can differentiate the difference between normal, premature, perpetual, failed, and so there are many examples. I only list out the important points, or the terminology only lah. Close out plan, questions to be asked. Always, what tasks are required to close the project? Who will be responsible for these tasks? When will the closure begin and end? And how will the project be delivered? Once you close the project, you have to deliver the project to the authority. If you are doing the project for your client, you have to deliver to the client. So those are the deliverables. Okay, then when you want to close the project, you need to have a checklist. And this checklist is called wrap-up closure checklist. You identify the task. You identify the team members that need to complete the task. For example, here you have identified the team members in the project, identify the vendors, the customers, the equipment and facilities. And under the team, the checklist or the questions related to the team. Has the schedule for reducing project staff been developed and accepted? Has the staff been released or notified of new assignments? Have performance review? These are all questions that related to the team members. And then for the vendors, contractors, have their performance being reviewed for all vendors? Have project accounts been finalized and billing closed? For the customers, has the customers sign off on the delivered product? And these are all the questions, equipment, facilities, and then you attach comments or links on any task you feel need to explain, needs an explanation. Then you have at the rightmost corner column a checklist of whether completed or not, yes or no. type of question. The checklist during wrap-up closure of the project. Then implementing project close down, getting delivery acceptance from the customer, shutting down the resources and releasing them to new users, because most of the time project, the resources, machineries you use, it can be reusable for other projects. So if it is lent or rented, before right after you shut down the project, you close the project, you have to identify the resources and release them so that later on it can be used to other project team lah. Then you need to do evaluation of the team members, project manager, and reassign project team members. All parties involved in the project, you need to do evaluation. Okay, and then for account, of course, account is the most important part of a project. You need to close the account. Any payment pending, you have to make sure payment done so that there is no debt. The clients will not be liable to pay the debt. So the project team has to ensure closing of the accounts. Okay, and then delivering the project to the customer, your clients, if you are the project manager or the project management team, and create the final report. These are 4 of us 6 items that must be present for before you can close a project. Okay. Then the final report, content of the final report must contain all these factors: executive summary, review analysis, recommendations, lessons learned, and also appendix regarding the project implementation project that is conducted. Okay, so under the executive summary, you have to describe the project goals, whether it is met or unmet, the stakeholder satisfaction with the project, user reactions to quality of the deliverables. And then under the review and analysis, you need to specify the project mission and objectives, the procedure and systems used, organization of resources used. The recommendation, technical improvements, corrective actions to be taken. And then the lessons learned, the reminders, these are all things that you do retrospectively. You look back and then you list down the lesson learned from the overall project. And the appendix can be the backup data or critical information project. Okay, and then project
General Imran.
Project performance evaluation.
Oh, General Imran.
Ya, General Imran ada kat sini ke? Okay. Reasons for poor quality project. The evaluations or the performance evaluation, you need to identify the reasons. Reasons such as reasons for poor quality project performance. And in terms of the evaluations of individuals left, the evaluations of the individuals are left to supervisors of the team members or the home department to do the evaluation. And then typical measure team performance only on time, cost, and specifications. So these are the performance evaluations. So meaning that the team members has to evaluate lah among themselves. And then pre-implementation conditions, the team has to look into, such as ask questions. These are pre-implementation examples of pre-implementation questions in terms of the standards and goals for the measuring performance. Clear, challenging, attainable. You can do like feedback questions. And then are the responsibilities and performance standards known by all team members? Are the team rewards adequate or not? Management believes the teams are important or not? Is there a career path for successful project managers? Does the team have discretionary authority to manage short-term difficulties? Is there a high level of trust within the organization culture? Are there criteria beyond time, cost, and specifications? These are examples of pre-implementation condition that the project team can throw questions and evaluate. Example, an easy way is feedback form. Like you fill in, you use a feedback form to answer all this. A sample evaluation and a feedback survey. You can do on a scale of 1 to 5. What do you think? 1 being disagree the most, 5 being agree the most. So 3 will be in the middle. So then your questionnaire will be using the scale below, assess each statement. So for example, the first one, the team shared a sense of common purpose and each member was willing to work towards achieving project objectives. So you identify whether agree with this statement or partially agree or agree very much, or you agree exactly agree up to level 5 lah. So these are actually what we call it Likert scale, 1 to 5. And then the second aspect, respect was shown for other points of view. Differences of opinions were encouraged and freely expressed. And you identify what level that you feel. And then the last one is all interaction among team members occurred in a comfortable and supportive atmosphere. Example of some team evaluation. Then for individual type of feedback or evaluations, you do performance assessment responsibilities, functional organization or functional metrics, the individual's area manager. And then for the individual's manager, you need to ask question like, the area manager may solicit the project manager's opinion of the individual's performance on a specific project. And then you can also have balance metrics. The project manager and the area manager jointly evaluate an individual's performance. You can also have project metrics and project organizations. The project manager is responsible for appraising individual performance. Okay, then you will have begin conducting the performance reviews. You begin by asking the individual to evaluate his or her own performance. Avoid drawing comparisons with other team members. Rather, assess the individual in terms of established standards and expectations. Focus criticism on specific behaviors rather than on the individual personally. And be consistent and fair in treatment of all team members. And treat the review as one point in an ongoing process. Okay. Then you can do multiple rater appraisal for individual assessment. Multiple rater appraisal, 360-degree feedback, meaning that you can evaluate your supervisor evaluate you, you evaluate your team members that is same level with you. So you do looking up, looking down, looking left and right. So this is an example possible also to do individual performance for an individual performance. And this involves soliciting feedback concerning team members' performance from all of the people that their work affects. It can be among the project managers, the area managers, the peers, subordinates, and customers. We call it 360-degree feedback. Okay, then evaluations in terms of retrospective study, where retrospective means you look back. What happened previously? Most of the time, the retrospective study is always looking at lessons learned. Where lessons learned is an analysis carried out during and shortly after the project life cycle to capture positive and negative project learning. What worked and what didn't work. These are lessons learned actually, retrospective study. And then you do also goals of retrospective to reuse learned solutions and to stop repetitive mistakes. If you don't identify the lessons learned, you cannot stop mistakes. So by hook or by crook, in order for you to avoid doing mistakes, you need to identify the lessons learned. So the goals of this retrospective is to avoid the repetitive mistakes and by using the lessons learned. Okay, and then retrospective, okay, the continuation of it. Barriers to organizational learning. These are the factors that hinder learning, such as a lack of post-project time to develop the lessons, no post-project direction or support for the teams, lessons become blaming session. People say, it's your fault, it's not my fault, that is the boss' fault. It become, when the retrospective study become a blaming session, it will not be efficient. In a retrospective study, most of the time, to identify the lesson learned, you have to be neutral. You cannot blame others. You have to identify what has happened and what caused it happen. It's not a blaming session. It's a lesson to learn. Lessons are not applied in other locations, meaning that you have identified from previous failures, but then you do not implement that lessons. So this is a barrier for move forward in a good manner. Okay, and then the organizational culture does not recognize value of learning. These are another factor that cause or that hinder the learning process. So these 5 factors are actually the barriers for a good learning process, and it can make the retrospective analysis useless. Okay, so try to avoid in I think but in your project group, you are not asked to do project closure actually. Your PMP report, you only implement the project and then present the project work, and then make a full report. So the closure itself is not are not included in the PMP report. Maybe in future semester, group, we can include project closure as an element for the project itself later on. Okay, the value of retrospective analysis, making the retrospective effective. How to make the previous slide describe the points that hinder effective retrospective study. Now we want to make the retrospective study become efficient or valuable. Okay, use the independent facilitator to guide. To make it more effective, you have an independent body to facilitate the process of learning session. Okay, because most of the time, if you use the same people in the team, those who are not in favor of a particular person in the project team may start to blame, may start to pointing out mistakes by other people, by other team members and so on. So that's not good. That will not be efficient. So to avoid that, you can use an independent facilitator not related to the project team. That is most of the time effective enough, because this independent facilitator has no interest in terms of no favorable to anybody in the project team. Include a minimum of 3 in-process learning gates during the life cycle, project cycle. So throughout the duration of the project, you make at least 3. For example, if the project is 12 months, you do at least 4 months so that you can have 3 learning gates, 3 point that you can do the evaluation. You don't wait until the end because if you do only one time evaluation, it's too late to correct it. At least if you have 3 learning sessions, from the first session you can make corrections so that between first gate and second gate you have improved, and then you make another learning session or retrospective study, then you can implement. So in that way you can make the process better. Okay, and then the third one is designate a team member as owner for each point in the retrospective study, and develop an easy to learn and easy to use learning repository to ensure future utilization of retrospective lessons. And then mandate use of retrospectives as part of the normal process for all the projects. Okay, then the characteristics of a closure facilitator. Okay, if you involve external facilitator, you need to choose the correct facilitator to make the process will not be effective. Okay, then perceive as impartial and fair. Okay, first, no direct involvement. So characteristic of the closure facilitator or indicators for a good candidate for a closure facilitator, that person must have no direct involvement or have direct interest in the project. So meaning that totally independent person. And it has the person is perceived as impartial or is a very fair person. And the person must be respected of senior management and other project stakeholders. You cannot choose a guy that is nobody. Most of the time, a facilitator, closure facilitator, someone respected, so that people will listen. The project team will listen to, will look up to. Then the facilitator will be working efficiently lah. And then the facilitator must willing to learn, willing to listen to everyone. Okay, it's not meaning that this guy is a fair person lah. Like item number 2 though. And then the person must be an independent and authority to report or audit results without fear of recriminations from special interests, perceived as having the best interest of the organization in making decisions, and broad-based experience in the organization or industry. So these are characteristics of a good closure facilitator. And then initiating the retrospective review, you will have automatic times or points when audits will take place. So you cannot do, you should avoid surprise retrospective review. It should be a plan. Okay, and then conduct the audits carefully and with sensitivity. So the retrospective, another terminology for retrospective studies is actually audit. So audit is you have identified who's the auditor, who will be responsible, and so on. And audit staff must independent from the project. Audit reports need to be used and accessible. Audit support organizational culture. The project closures should be planned and orderly. And certain conditions must be in place to support team and individual evaluation. And then conduct individual and team evaluation separate from pay or merit reviews. So moral of the story, the reviewer or the reports is independent. Okay. And the retrospective process itself is like you do project in looking at the project life cycle. You have project plan and then retrospective gate 1, retrospective gate 2, retrospective end. And this one it will be so from here you have 3 points. As mentioned, theoretically, you need to have at least 3 retrospective gates. So the end gate will be the final. And then you do retrospective library. Depending if the project is very long, then you will have numerous retrospective gates. And then the whole collective of the retrospective analysis will be collection of retrospective reports that is organized in terms of a library of the reports, and that will be used as organizational learning culture for improvement, to avoid future mistake, to avoid lesson, to use it as lesson learned, so that future projects can be more effective than the previous project. Okay, then how to conduct a retrospective analysis involves initiation of and staffing, data collection, analysis, and then reporting. So it's a long process. This is like an audit. Then prepare project process review questionnaire. You have many questions to answer. Where are the project objectives? Where the objectives, whether they are aligned, whether the stakeholders identify, and so on. So these are examples of the questions that you need to ask. Were the project resource adequate for this project? Were the people with the right skill sets assigned to this project? Were the time estimates reasonable and achievable? Were the risk for the project appropriately identified and assessed before the project started? Were the process and practices appropriate for this type of project? And so on. A list of long questions to be answered. So these have to be included in the review questionnaire. And then you must also have organizational culture. Previously, project process questionnaire. The next set of questions is for the organization, for the project team, organization that deals with the project. You have a set of questions, all pertaining to the organization of the project. Was the organizational culture supportive? Was the senior management support adequate? Were the people with the right skills assigned to this project? So these are all related to organization of the project. Did the team have access to organizational resource? The previous set of questions are about the project itself. Okay, and this set of questions are mostly on the organization. Were the lessons learned from earlier project useful? Did the project have a clear link to organizational objectives? Was the project staff properly reassigned? And was the human resource office helpful in finding helps, new assignments, and so on? So these are all related to organization. You can make comparison between organizational review questionnaire and this set of questionnaire, the process project itself. Okay, and then once you have the retrospective reports at different retro gates, you need to archive the retrospective reports based on projects, project type, size, staffing, technology level, strategic support issues and problems. And then these are the way you can organize the retrospective reports. Project missions and objective, procedures and systems used, and then the organization's resource use. You can always organize it in order. And I think that's all that I have, because the last, okay, I did not include, only up to this, archiving this, because the last from the key terms, let me see. I think in the slides that I put, let me check. Okay, you have 62 pages. So that's all from me. And until this slide, the rest are not used. So I hope, okay, students are able to identify important points, important things from the lectures, and okay, for your exam, my questions are there are two parts of my questions, which is, I can say it is MCQ questions, because there are 400 of you guys. So I have MCQ questions. If I'm not mistaken, what? Like 30 questions. 15 or total of 30 marks for me. And then we will have short answer question. Short answer question, a problem given, and then identify based on the problems, and then describe. So very basic type of questions, and hopefully, because the exam is given in terms of 2 hours, 2:30 to 4:30. So we will have I think 2 hours is enough lah, because for the MCQ questions, from the answers given, you need to choose the best answer possible for the questions. But actually, MCQ questions needs to identify from the choices given what are not correct. So you have to take some time juga lah in order for you to answer the choice. Okay. You will have 1 more week next week. Next week will be, I think, the last lecture, the week 13 and 14 will be, I think Dr. Ain will inform you. And I suppose students should be working on the PMP project lah, PMP report. So any questions for my part? If you have any question, you can ask now, or if you can also ask via email. Attendance, okay. So it's almost 7. And so if you don't have any question, I shall let you all go. Thank you for listening. And I will shut down this. And reply to your conversation, Mana. There is conversation? All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Betul.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.